You for tuning in to our work session of the Marion Council with the Berlin Fire Company and Berlin Fire Company EMS. Tonight's transition over to EMS. The recording will stay the same for both sections of the meeting. So we'll turn it over to President Fitzgerald, if you don't mind.
Sure. First thing, just keep it on here as a so it doesn't fall off our radar. So if the town has any progress on their impact fees. Recollect that you were having Mr. Gaskell do some research of legalities and what have you. So again, we just monitor the planning commission, and every time we see another thing, we see that as a missed opportunity.
I can give just a little update on where we're at. So the Marion Council just adopted their FY25 budget. Within that budget, it does include a study to help us work toward reevaluating our impact fees. So that's kind of where we stand right this moment, but work on that will not start until July 1. But we are moving that ball forward, so thank you.
Sounds good. And then the next thing is we have the contract for services and
Yeah, and on this one, if Dave, if you want me to
turn it over to Joe when you get to the contract.
Yeah, well, I think the first one is our fire and rescue services, and what we've done, President Fitzgerald sent you all on April 16th a letter with the contract attached, and we were just calling your attention to the change, which is section 2 in item 2. And we just said that, you know, for full disclosure, that you all acknowledge that the request for capital expenses, you're unable to fund it this year. And it may, and we're just, because obviously we would let you know in advance if we know it's coming. If it reduces our ability to provide fire apparatus, we would let you know to see if there was something that could be recognized on that. But we do acknowledge that what you have said is that the $150,000 for capital expenditures, you're unable to, or capital expenses, you're unable to fund this year. We certainly, as you all know, last thing we want to do is to reduce services. And what we would do, we would reach out as a partnership to say, here's what we need with regard to either apparatus or equipment, and we don't have the money to fund it. Can you find the money to help us? So it's simply in the contract, the providing, which everybody knows, the only thing that we can provide are services that we have money for, and those services do include required updates for fire safety and rescue of apparatus and equipment. And I always say this, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir, we ask you for no money for our 50 volunteers. Simply their apparatus, their turnout gear, and the equipment that we have to provide the services. But that's the only change that we have put in there with regard to simply have it out there, and obviously we're going to be proactive if that time comes.
So I have a problem with that clause. It's kind of like calling us out for not meeting your request or your standard. I mean, this mayor and council worked real hard during this budget session to get you additional funding.
I understand that.
And so we met it at a higher level according to what we could afford, but this just makes us look bad.
Well, and respectfully, all we're doing is saying that the money that we have asked you for is for apparatus and equipment. If we can't provide the service because we don't have the apparatus and equipment, we can take it out of the contract, because if that's where you all are, certainly it's not a unilateral contract, it's for both sides. But we just want you all to know that that's where we are. We cannot provide, I mean, I have not been a volunteer because, you know, as I've said 100 times, I used to see Charlie Townsend get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Charlie Townsend is 6 months younger than I am when he lived down near me. But I do recognize the fact that they do have to have the apparatus and equipment to provide full services. If you all, respectfully, Jay, it's not going to go away whether or not it's in the contract.
And I
It's
would
still
say
there.
this, Dave and RJ have repeatedly made a case for capital money. They've laid it out. I think everybody on this council and the mayor is well aware of what the needs are.
Okay.
And, yeah, we'd like to be able to meet those obligations. I'm speaking for myself, not, but anyway, we'd like to be able to meet those obligations, but this year, we just couldn't at that level.
I understand, and all we were trying to do was just let you all know that what the results of that may be, and if all we need to do is say it, then that's fine. It does not require to be in the contract, but we just needed to put it out there, that that's where we are.
Could I make if you're okay? Can we just change it possibly to the mayor and council acknowledges the continued request of 150 for capital expenses, and then just switch to the last sentence, mayor and council shall continue its efforts to comply with the request?
Fine. Yeah, that's
Is
fine.
that, I mean, well, that's just, I'm just me.
Well, and again, folks, I well enough. We're not trying to play games. We're trying to just put it out there as to what we do and how we spend
Yeah.
the money that you give.
And the other side of that, to Jay and Jack's point, I think it's been our goal to work together constructively on how we can overcome the capital requests and be able to fund that. And I feel like we're going to get to this a little bit later in our discussion, but we've tried to have some middle ground there on the town absorbing some of the costs of developing a parking lot in the back of the fire company,
Right.
to help with the goal of transitioning all the revenue to the fire company to meet their capital requests. But I feel like the ask that we got, and we'll get to this in a little bit, is a little one-sided on the town absorbing too much risk at one time without acknowledging that we really are trying to help you all achieve the capital goals.
Well, respectfully, Mayor, we did put it in there that the mayor and council shall continue their efforts to comply with the request. This side of the table, I think I can say, has got no problem with whatever you all want to do as long as you recognize that that's the purpose of the $150,000. And Councilman Orris, it's up to you all. That seems to me to be a good compromise, but again, not our call. It's a bilateral contract.
I think it's nice, to Councilmember Orris's point, to mention it because we have spent so much time trying to develop that number. And I feel like if somebody else were sitting here in a future date, it's helpful for them to acknowledge what that capital request would be.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be omitted in entirety, but I think that, to Jay's point, this does kind of make it a little bit more of a blemish than a constructive piece of dialogue.
Yeah, and I was also a little concerned with, I wouldn't want anyone who's not, anyone who's just kind of reading this and seeing it and seeing, I'm just concerned with reduction in services to just regular folk reading it.
That's fine. That's fine. We were
But I
trying to
understand.
we were trying to get across to you all, and you're saying that you understand it, so that's where we are.
That should hurt.
No problem.
Jack, can you read it again for the record?
Sure, so in section 2, number 2, I can't make a motion, but the suggestion is, the mayor and council acknowledges the continued request of $150,000 for capital expenses, period. Mayor and council shall continue its efforts to comply with this request.
Okay.
Who's making the change?
We'll do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we have it for, I know, that's what,
I didn't do one.
I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. Can we have, yes, thank you. That way we can adopt the contract.
I have a question on section, page 1. It talks about this people meet in public work sessions quarterly. And then in section, paragraph 4, it says this people provide a quarterly presentation. The mayor had sent a letter on behalf of the mayor and council requesting that we go back to just 4 quarterly meetings where we can accomplish everything in those meetings. So is this still referred to having 8 meetings?
Right, we talked about it with the ambulance captain, and we appreciate the comment about less meetings, but we didn't feel, because we sat at your council meeting and they get till 10 o'clock at night, so we do a presentation. You all have worked all day, had a very lengthy meeting, and then we're going to tackle on a work session at the end. We've worked all day, the same thing. We just think it won't be this, we won't get the things accomplished, and that was our thought process. if you tack it on to already a meeting, and maybe you have a topic that you can't control, that goes long, we're all ready to go home.
Well, so by
10 o'clock at night.
I think Jack had a suggestion on that.
One thing is,
And
it possible we could.
and we
put
can't
down
do it- we
further
can't do
I
it.
think that was
We
his.
can't do it before, we can't do it earlier, we always have to be last on the agenda because we have a meeting that same night. So we can't do it earlier, we always have to be the last thing on your agenda because we're meeting at the same time. So we kind of go through our meeting quick, it's actually what we call our shorter meeting night, with limited agenda items, so we can get here timely.
What, so if we put you on for like 7, that would be too early? Like the very first thing after the approval of the agenda?
Yeah.
Because you guys start yours at 6 or 6:30?
6:30. And same thing, if we get long, you're up here waiting for us and you've had a public agenda that's out, now you're off.
I mean, what happens if we try a year where we've tried this for a year? Why don't we try a year where we put you on the agenda with the understanding that as soon as you come in, what we can do is suspend an item, move it up, and put you at the very next point, so that you get us, as soon as you come in the door, we can adjust the agenda upward, and we can maximize the time and then redo our remaining part of the meeting.
Or,
I'm just saying, as a.
or just throwing this out here, so your meetings are the second Monday of the month?
Second and fourth, same as yours.
Yeah.
Oh, the same as ours?
Same as yours.
Because, okay, well, what I was,
Our fourth meeting is what we call our shorter meeting, which we have rules of limited agenda items.
but aren't you scheduled for the second meeting?
Yes, and that's why we are always put last on your agenda, because we know we can get here an hour into your meeting. By 7:30, we're done.
That's what I'm saying, so I think that if we put,
7:30, we know we can.
I'd like to try it.
That's reasonable.
And I would say before we try it a whole year, maybe do, I don't know how to write it, because I'm brainstorming here. Do it for 6 months of the year, maybe do it, and then, I don't know how to phrase that, but that's type it all out. And the reason you guys have an election coming up, we also have elections every year, might not be the 3 same people. So I would say, and I don't want to cut RJ off so you can say what he said, but maybe try it for the first 2 quarters, and then however we phrase it, revisit it.
a mutually
by
agreed upon.
December 15th.
So is the overall goal to have the quarterly reports and the quarterly work sessions the same
Well,
evening?
since you're, in my mind, and jump on Jay's, but we were on the same wavelength, I guess, what I was just kind of thinking was you're already planning for these July, January, October, April Mondays. I was thinking that we could do like what we're doing now, 6 to 7:30 before the meeting. We're here, we're not extremely tired. You're first, we hear y'all out for the work session part. Then we can put you first on the agenda for the open session, which is where we talk about the numbers and all that, not all that, the numbers and the response rate, what you're regularly doing. That's what I was going to propose, but it sounds like since your meetings are at the same time, 6 o'clock is not going to work.
Yeah, no, because that's the problem, we've tried that before, and we're right half in the middle of a sentence, and we're looking at our watch at 6:25, and there's 30 people up there waiting for their 3 top officers to convene, the president to convene the meeting, not that we don't have a vice president, and our officers.
Well, yeah, because you already hear the whole.
Because we'd be here.
So
And it's not that we
We've done
don't
that
want-
before.
What's the feelings about keeping with the work sessions, and we give a quarterly report during our work session instead of during a council meeting?
Well, that's up to you because I
I
thought
mean,
you all wanted
it's
to do the.
public and it's live.
We do a quarterly report in public.
Okay.
So there can be the interaction if the public wants to talk. That was the purpose of it before. If things have changed.
I think it's nice to have it publicly done.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to try, when you all come in, we'll wrap up whatever agenda item we're on, move you to the front, and then resume our regular meeting. Let's give it a try for 2 meetings. We'll do the first 2 of FY '25 and see how it goes. And then if it's not working out as planned, then we'll come back to our regular show. But if it's working, I'd like to stick with that one.
How about if we type up a little paragraph and send you guys to look at?
That's fine.
Once
That
you all-
would be good.
And then, I know you, so Mr. Gasper, just asking you or whatever, because I know they can't reply as a group to the open.
Just send it to him.
But I'll send it to him, because you are gonna need to reply to us prior to June 10th if we're gonna get it in the contract.
So what I would do is just send it to Gaskell
Let you figure it out.
and let Gaskell handle it from there.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha, go.
Yeah, gas,
You all can figure it out.
we'll take care of it.
Figure it. We don't need to know the minute details. I just don't wanna
We'll get it done on our end, yep.
I don't want to jammed up.
It's better if you're not in that loop.
Don't want to read about it.
That's right.
Okay, so number 3, we just kind of hashed that out.
Okay,
Number 4 would be the Harrison Avenue parking lot, and that'd be Mr. Moore.
yeah, and
I got it.
I will tell you that President Fitzgerald and I met today. I had drafted a lease, and this is unfair to have, I've got copies for everybody. I sent it to Dave today. And the reason that I waited until today is because President Fitzgerald and I just met this morning, and when I went back, I revised the thing that I had sent him one, he had sent me one back, and we've been trading and all that. So, Mary, I've got one.
Yeah, I got it.
Everybody got one?
So Joe, if I can, just to give everybody the history, the internal history of this is, once the mayor and council told us the interest, we did spend, we meaning the corporate body, spent about 15 or 20 minutes of our last meeting to go through this. And then not to go through this, but bullet points, they gave the officers direction on certain bullet points they wanted in the agreement, and then we gave those to Joe. And there was a couple bullet points that I saw that were missing. That's why Joe and I had to meet this morning.
Yep.
So on our side, that's where it's been. It's been for our membership. All the bullet points that our members brought up and going around the room are in this. That's where we're.
And then on our side, our goal.
You guys haven't seen it yet.
Well, and our goal here really is, before you even sent the stuff over, was through dialogue with David and RJ, that we understand the 150 we're not able to do this year. And we understand what our finances look like. And I know we're talking about impact fees and things of that nature, but we'd really like to have a couple of different sources to be able to help out here. And what we're proposing, or we were proposing in dialogue, is that the town take a very make a small payment to the fire company to lease the property for a duration of time, make the improvements to the site that need to be done so you can park cars there, signage, bring on the payment system so it's a paid process. And then from there, any revenue that comes in would then go to cover the capital expenses that we know you all need. So we really didn't want to keep the money. We just want to be able to solve a parking problem and to be able to pass the revenue along in the form of capital to you all. That's our goal. But I don't think a huge payment for the lease is going to work. But if there's a way that we can absorb the capital costs to bring it online and then make it a way that we can help you all with some revenue, that's what we're trying to do.
Well, and on this side of the table, of course, we didn't want to bid against ourselves, Mayor, so, we saw the.
I think $1 is where we were.
Well,
So, yeah, I mean, seriously,
$1
with,
is inadequate consideration, so.
not if you're getting all the
But you're
revenue.
getting all the revenue.
Well, I understand, but let me say, Woody Bunning is going to finally prepare a plat. We now have all of the various properties that we've acquired, so that we now have it all. And the use of the property is a consideration, of course, for the members, not just the two guys that are here, the members of the fire company, and they have various situations for use of the property. And for that matter, of course, they could park in the grass and get their own revenues. Now, we believe the quid pro quo is actually there because in the lease, you all would be doing substantial improvements and maintaining the property. We understand that. And by the same token, and I say this respectfully, we're resolving a problem that you all have struggled with. You've met with everybody you know in the town to try and find additional parking, and we are able to provide that to you as long as we can reach an agreement. This lease is a first draft, obviously, because we just met today, but we wanted to get our side out there, and I think that we work from there. And but and again, I say this respectfully, you all know that the fire company is able to provide a service to the town that you all have been struggling with to try and find parking, and you can't do it, but we found a way that we can do it. So
But
this
Mr.
is our offer.
Hold on
Let's
one
put it
second,
that
if
way.
you don't mind. I'll take us back to our previous conversation where you say that if you're unable to fund $150,000 in capital costs, that the services may be reduced, and we're trying to help you in the same vein through a challenge. I just can't figure it out.
Let me, and I recognize that, but
I'm
let me
just trying to
let me
figure
say
it out.
this. You all have a lot more ability to find funding sources than the fire company does. So you choose to find your funding sources the way you find your funding sources. But if you wanted to, we all know that you have other ways that you've chosen not to do it. So we believe that it is a joint benefit, but the fire company likewise is trying to get a substantial benefit out of providing that benefit for the town. It's just, you know, these guys, I shouldn't say it that way, the fire company can utilize that property and they can collect parking. Now, they don't have the funding to, you know, improve it like you all do, but it provides a benefit, a substantial benefit, because you know that they already allow people to park in their lots. This is a large piece of property that's going to be able to Woody Bunning hadn't done a calculation about the number of spaces that's going to be provided to the mayor and council for your parking, but it's substantial, obviously.
How do you
So-
all feel?
So there could be about 80 to 100, I believe. That's what it spots.
Okay.
The town does have options. You know, this isn't the only site that's an option. This one that's being done. You know, I've kind of been pretty point blank on parking. I mean, everything's on the table except what we're doing now. You know, I think 150,000, I mean, that's a lot more than other options that are closer.
Well, and I understand that, there's no harm in asking you all, maybe.
That's right. I find it insulting, you know,
Well,
frankly. But I think that there are options for, you know, when we are trying to meet this deficit, this perceived difference between the gap of operating expense, or not, capital expenses and what's currently being given. I think it was a good faith gesture to try to address this. Obviously, we have improvement costs that will go into this as well. Yeah, it's a start. I mean, I was concerned also about the part of the landlord can decline use of the lot in the event of a special event. So if there's a wedding on Fiddler's Convention weekend, we can't use that lot on a Saturday.
Well, I think the intent was that if there is we have the obligation to tell you what we would like to do.
Yeah.
And again, Steve, you know well enough, I'm not going to draft a lease that doesn't benefit my client the way they asked me to. So,
Sure, you did well.
so please believe me when I did not say, I'm going to put this in there to insult
Right.
Councilman Green. I did not intend to do that. These folks have their directive from their company. And it is our ask, okay? And we believe that we are giving you a benefit as well as you all are giving us a benefit.
Can I jump in?
And I respectfully say also, I think you'd rather give whatever you get from that parking to the fire company rather than to give it to some private owner in the town of Berlin. So that's where we
Let me
are.
jump in. I think since some of us just got this
I know that.
lease 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
I think the best course of action is to let the members of the council stew on it, read it, digest it, and we'll get back to that subject at a later date.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
I just want to say, I think with the improvement that needs to be made to the property to allow parking, I think the $150,000 is unreasonable. if we had $150,000, we wouldn't be doing this with the parking lot. We would be funding what you need.
Right.
So to put that number up there, at this time in the negotiation, I really do believe is unreasonable.
Well-
And I would, if we're gonna be in this thing together, trying to facilitate additional funding, which is ultimately gonna be with the fire department, I think what the mayor has suggested is not unreasonable. Just, we could work toward $150,000 annually, but the initial payment of $150,000 with the improvements that need to be made, it's just and we can't do that.
Well,
We just can't afford it.
And let me say this, I hear you. I hear you, the $150,000 is unreasonable. I apologize if you considered it insulting, it didn't mean to be. But where I'm saying is, look, most of you know that Mark Williams was my mentor. And he said, Joe, if you're going to represent a client, you do your best job for them. Put your best foot forward, because there's always going to be a comeback. We expect that. And Dave, you're right. I was surprised, frankly, to see that it was on tonight's agenda, because Dave Fitzgerald and I just met this morning, and I saw, when he told me, I think, Mary, when you told us you wanted us to come up here, he said it was on the agenda.
But the reason it was
Set by
on,
the fire company.
no, I asked for that item.
You asked for
Because
it.
I asked it,
Misunderstanding.
but Mr. Moore, I don't know, hold on, I don't know if it was relayed to you. But at our last quarterly meeting, I had asked David and RJ to have their conversation and be ready to discuss it tonight.
Okay, fair enough.
I had asked that several months ago. So I think that it's something I wanted to discuss. I think I would have liked to have seen it a little earlier, but it's here, we're discussing it, we're talking about it, hopefully we can be constructive.
So I have just a couple general questions about this. We keep talking about improvement, but people park there now, correct?
No, they park in the parking lot.
Don't you open up the grassy lawn?
So we
Grassy
do,
knoll.
but it's very restrictive to weather. So if there's any, we usually go by 5/10 of an inch, half
stormwater
inch.
issues?
So if there's a half inch of rain, can't park there because it will rut it all up. And our grass cutting gentleman who does it for free does not want to be huckle. Or do we want to have people, like we had at Christmas parade, get stuck and then want to call us and want us to pay their tow bills, even though we have signs? That's why we have all those signs that say park at your own risk, because we have a board that tells us to put those signs out there.
So when you do, I guess,
So when we do, it is weather dependent.
right, so when you, okay, so overall you do parking on a trust, I call it honor system.
When there's special events, or if the banquet hall is rented with a large capacity event. So if we have a banquet hall rental and they say there's 250 people coming to this wedding, we drop that again, weather dependent.
So with the, I guess I'm trying to get an idea I want to continue this discussion. I mean, I think that when you're doing just for regular events and your parking lot is open, are you seeing a huge increase in revenue from that?
No. We can watch on the cameras and what have you, and we even had our vice president had a major event. His wife got engaged with somebody pretty heatedly because he didn't put something.
Right.
in the
So,
box.
so right now, people are just parking
So
there.
they're parking there, there's multiple signs up with 2 donation lock boxes, and you will find a $20 bill in there occasionally, which is great.
Mhm.
You'll find nuts and bolts and washers in there, or pennies.
Okay.
Or you have people that just don't.
Just don't do it.
I'm just trying to get an idea of
Yep.
the potential
So
revenue.
it's,
And I respect Gaskell's point, but the only thing that I would suggest is that we have some, I think the most substantive discussion we can have this evening is probably this. Because, and I say that, because the mayor and council are not looking to wait very long before we address the parking solution. And we would like, first and foremost, I think, to help the fire company if we can. But if that's not going to be a worthwhile endeavor, if we can't find a way to be able to work together on it, then I think, to Steve's point, we're going to go a different direction. And I would really like for you to take the dollar back to them, understanding that you're getting our goal, and we'll put it in writing at the time of the lease, would be that any revenue that comes in goes to cover capital. But if it takes too long, that boat will probably sail.
So I think a number, to go back to the membership, I think what we're gonna need from the town, because they're gonna say the same thing, the dollars consulting. I think there's gonna have to be some sort of review on the town side, to have an engineer go out there and provide the fire company the rough cost of those improvements.
That's reasonable, I think.
I think that's,
I think that's
because to go
reasonable.
back to the membership, say you're gonna get $1, and to tell them, I don't know, I'm not in that business.
I don't know how much it would take to improve
Somebody in
it
that
either.
business should be able to provide a number. I know we engaged Davis Bowen and Fidel, but strictly on a freebie. Take a quick look at the plat from Mr. Bunning and tell us about how many spots, and he said 80 to 100. But the biggest thing is stormwater management. Are you gonna blacktop it? Are you gonna do the impervious surface like is out at the Aldi?
I think what we would start with, just in full transparency, is probably gravel. We would probably start with gravel.
Oh, well,
With
that's,
the goal that if it works, then we want to try the least costly option first.
so I think providing that, so I can report back from Mr. Moore and what have you, to the membership, okay, proposal is $1 lease, but we're gonna get X number of dollars in improvements.
Okay.
And like you said, maybe it's a phase, okay, the first improvement's gonna be gravel, and if it works well, then the second improvement is gonna be blacktop with striping, and it's gonna cost X. The
And-
gravel's gonna cost approximately X.
The other part is think about, as we work down that lane, I think that this, good job, Mr. Moore, but I think we can, let's try to soften it a little bit, right? Let's make it work for both sides. The areas where you think you're gonna, I think there should be a caveat that when you're leasing the banquet area and you have a large amount, that we work together to make sure that that's reserved.
And that's-
So it covers, you know what I mean? Like, those things should be in there so that it's capable of helping one another.
But
And it also
that's
says-
a banquet you're leasing out to another party for, right?
Right, but we wouldn't want them to charge parking in addition to that. You know what I mean? Like, if it's their, I mean, technically, it's their lot.
Well, we
So-
don't know those dates.
Well,
But if they let us know in advance.
The procedure's in here, you guys have.
I read that, yeah.
I was gonna
And that
say,
can be more flexible, because we can actually.
yeah, I was gonna say, we recognize this is a first eyes only. I mean, really, so you all come back to us, and that's where we go. You know, all we are doing, trust me, all we're doing is what we're directed to do by the fire company. And, you know, Mark Williams told me, he said, well, if you can't represent your client, what you want to do, tell him to get another lawyer. I don't want him to get another lawyer. I don't like to.
No, and I respect that. I understand where you are.
I just think we need to be realistic on the revenue, you know, you put 150, there's no way it's gonna even come close to that.
And you heard me say, I've learned not to bid against myself. We expect you all to come back.
And it does say here that landlord shall receive 50% of the revenue exceeding the said sum of the lease. So we are talking about actually.
100%.
Yeah, provided. So I think that's a piece of the puzzle that's done.
And that's,
And I know that it's an
that's why
impossible.
we're here. That's why we're here.
Budgetary sort of
There's no doubt
situation.
about that. And, yeah.
So our timeline on this, what we would like to do is we're gonna have a conversation amongst ourselves and get back to you hopefully by mid-June. We would like to move quickly on this, if possible. So if you could meet with your membership during your second meeting, and then let's try to be ready to have at least an idea of where we're headed by the end of June. I think that would be reasonable.
I think there needs to be one more clause in there if I could. When the town's having a town event, that's when we need parking for those. Those are dates that you couldn't, and those dates are published well in advance, you couldn't close this out. In other words,
I understand.
we would need that weekend or
I
whatever.
understand. Well, but do I correctly understand, we will hear from you all?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we are.
Correct.
You have our first offer.
But I think that as your membership, like, if they see this, I think you should be ready to at least deliver where the mayor and council's mindset is on it, which is a lower lease amount annually, a 10-year term with all the revenue going to the fire company. That's really where we're at. We're trying to work out the nuts and bolts from there.
Well, and I think David is right, where if you can give us an estimate of what
Right.
it's gonna cost, that'll go a long way telling the fire company there is a quid pro quo, which is coming from the mayor and council. I think that'll be significant.
And we're really focused on the cost of improvements and the number of spaces that we can possibly get out of that.
Right.
So when can we get Dave that number?
We'll get DDF started on it tomorrow, but we're not gonna sink, it's not gonna be like it's probably gonna be similar to what you all got. It'll be more of a surface level, this is where we're at. We're not gonna sink a whole lot into that right this moment, but we'll at least get DBF to take a look at that.
So will that just come out of
Fair enough.
the general fund?
Yeah, it comes out of the general fund cost of engineering services. We might be a little over.
So I'm just looking at my calendar, so just so everybody has realistic expectations, so July the 8th would be our main meeting, and that's where this would be a topic on our agenda. So what we'll do at our June meeting, which will be next Monday, we'll give this update, the meeting here, we're waiting for the numbers back, so just so there's a realistic explanation, you've got till the week before July 8th.
Okay,
And then we'll give that support, come back. So I'm just looking at my calendar there.
thank you, we would appreciate that.
So a month, essentially.
Okay.
All right, move on to EMS.
You get a bottom page.
Okay, on the EMS, of course, what we've done is the Section 2, Item 1, and Section 2, Item 2, and I think they're self-explanatory with regard to the changing the amount of the budget. And we recognize that the $125,000 in Section 2, Item 1, will be documented as being used to fund 2 emergency medical technician positions. So David said that it takes him some time to bring that, but that's our obligation. So we will show you that $125,000 is to be used to fund those. And then the other one is the town budgeted amount of $15,000 and payment of 1 of 3 currently scheduled. And everything else, I think, is basically as it has been in the past.
The
Does
first,
that jive with our adopted budget?
no, the first number of 605,405 needs to be changed to 359. That's the budget amount.
Even? Does that does not include the 125?
Correct. The 125 is a separate item in the last line of that paragraph.
It just-
Okay.
The 359 reflects operating, I'm not 100% sure why this was divided. There's 2 allocations indicated as EMS operating, one for 284, and one for 75. So the combination of the 2 is 359.
Okay.
I'm not sure why they were separated that way.
Well, that's less money than we got last year. We got $409,000 versus $484. So you gonna cut the budget again?
Hold on one second. No, you got more. This year you got more. Hold on one second. Let's figure this out
It's
together.
359 plus 125 is 484 total, yes.
that's what we always
Yes, that 359 only refers to that first number of 605.
But did we not agree, we don't have to itemize the 125?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
It's 125 is given to you. You are providing the backup financials for it.
Yeah, the financials, but I don't have to do all the payroll.
Correct.
Takes an hour.
That's correct. You don't have to do that.
These funds are going to be cut, the checks will be cut as soon as possible after July 1st.
Yep.
So
And
so
we're at
the annual payment will be this 480
484.
total. I don't have my glasses on here.
I mean,
But
that's really up
that's the
to
only
you.
thing
If you
that
want it
doesn't-
cut in 2 checks,
I don't think it needs to be cut in 2.
Okay.
I think 1 check's fine,
Okay.
but the only thing that 484 does not include is the first of the 3 payments for the $15,000 in capital.
We have that-
Just so that we're all on the same
We
page.
have that number too,
Right.
so and we deposit that, we need it in a separate check, because we deposit in a separate account.
On top of that, so number 2, I think it's, well, I'm going to throw it out here. Can or should we kind of notate that that is also from the, that's from the LDC funds, right? That's the.
That's not, I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessary.
No?
That's internal to your all's budget.
That's all.
We've always said we don't care where the money
Well,
comes from.
I just thought it was
That's
okay for
up to you.
everybody.
You did it for the customer, I think is what I told you.
That's part of your annual plan.
But I think it looks good
It's
if
not-
it's in here and the fire company is recognizing and it's out there in public that LDC funding is going partly to public safety. As well
Off
as-
the top of my head, I can't speak to what your
That's just
annual
my thought.
plan read for this year, how that was.
It was, he's correct.
Okay, okay.
But it says
That could
that,
change too.
but the
But
LDC
it's only
plan,
applicable for this agreement.
but the LDC plan says that we will contribute $45,000 in 3 years. We have chosen to front fund that to help get, even though the funding's not here from the LDC, we are front funding that with town dollars to get you all in the ability to be able to count on that payment and to put it in your account so that you can start working toward your ambulance stuff.
So instead of waiting until year 3 for 45,000, you're doing 15 each year.
Correct.
just for clarity.
Yeah. So I don't know if we need to, I see where you're going, but I don't know if we need that in here. It might
I don't
just
see
make
why
it more
it-
confusing.
It would hurt, but okay. Okay.
So I just want to be clear, we will have one check for the 359 plus the 125,
484 total.
484 total, and a separate check for 15.
Yes, please.
On different dates.
They don't need to be,
We put different dates in there.
That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
This is-
no, it
this
doesn't
is
need
prior
to.
to, so we don't care.
Yeah.
Just the discussion, I guess, that we do need to rehash is, again, and, you know, gotta get this approved on the same night you all have to get things approved, the reduction in the amount of the budget, because that does, just bringing it back out, that does affect our operational capability with personnel. We will not have personnel that our organization feels we need to operate.
And I
Put
think,
that on the table.
but I think that the other side of that is that we received that ask and the broken down ask. We hear that the same way we hear the capital. Right now, I don't have a funding pathway to be able to overcome that. But I think that what's more likely is next year that we're able to move on that request a little bit. But I doubt we'll be able to do both. So we're trying to come at these in 2 different ways. We know that our revenue should grow next year, and maybe we can make some incremental approaches to helping you reach this level that you want to see for your operations. We hear that. But we need to tackle these in as many different ways as we can, because our revenue sources, albeit, I know Joe said we've got levers to pull, they're constrained. Our primary driver of revenue is real estate taxes. So that's kind of where we're at. We need more ability to help you all, is what we're saying.
And then, we're gonna make the assumption, we will make the same edit to the meetings that
Yes.
we discussed with the fire rescue services. So we'll get that draft.
That's section 1, paragraph 5.
Yeah, so we get that, get that same verbiage to you, Maura talking about for the first 2 meetings together.
It's also referenced in section 1, paragraph 2.
Say that again, Jay, please.
The quarterly meetings are mentioned in section 1, paragraph 2, and section
Yep.
1, paragraph 5. So
Okay.
that one needs to go away and
Yeah.
further change.
Okay. Sounds good.
Are we all still on the same page that we support a funding formula? I know we talked about this before. I was a little taken aback, but I understand where Dave was coming from, the county. Basically, if we do come at a funding formula, it's like that's the basement, yeah, of what the pricing would be. And, you know, from you all's perspective, I think reading it, you all have supported a funding formula in the past because it works with the county.
And what it does for us, just so we're clear, what it does for both parties, so it's not just the organization, what it does also for the town, is once the calendar year is completed, that calculation can be done. So within 2 weeks, January 15th to the 20th, based upon staff at the 911 center, giving us the numbers and us double checking in the state system, that arithmetic can be done, and the town knows where their budget's going, and the Emergency Medical Service Corporation knows where their budget's going. And if for some reason there's some sort of impasse, when I say impasse, maybe there's been some great big, a good example is the ambulance cost that went from $250 to $450. Then you have to have a discussion, and the formula needs to be worked on a little bit or reviewed.
But then you would be tackling like a segment of the
A segment of
formula,
it.
which would be capital.
Yeah, so it works out well for both parties. The county, in this case, the county can figure their budget out for emergency medical service, and the entity providing it knows what they're.
But to Steve's point, I think a pinch point for us, I think yes to the formula. I think the formula, to David's point, is a nice way to do it. We know basically by January, we should have this part figured out. I mean, maybe February, but January should be pretty close. So now, where I don't like the formula is when we learn that that's the floor. I think if we're gonna go to a formula, we have to understand that call volume is one of the derivatives of the formula. So we have to all be on the same page that if that's the path that we're taking, that it's not the floor. And that if your call volume goes down, then we are expecting you all to maybe make some changes to be able to help that.
And I think we would be, the corporation would be okay with that once we get a contingency fund reestablished. Because again, not to bring up bad history, we had that contingency fund and we were forced to use it based on the town's cuts. And that's what the purpose of the contingency fund. If your call value went down, okay, you're not going to go lay off personnel because they're still needed. You're going to do just like anybody does. You're going to dig in that budget. Where can we cut in the budget? What things can we cut? And then do we have to reach out to our contingency for that year because that year's call back was down? And that's what we've done since 1965, or what, the formula didn't really start in 65. But when they started the ambulance service, that's what we did. Because I was the ambulance treasurer for many years, and we did have to do that. We had to reach into the contingency fund. It's probably like that.
So, I mean, yes, I'm very curious and interested in working with it. And in my head, I'm like thinking of how it is. But my question is, it was before, is what is the, this is probably not the right word, how do we figure that out? What's the denominator? Like, how do we figure out, where does one start and figure out this formula? Like, if I ask you, can you get us, for all of us to work on this formula, past 5 years, 5 calendar year calls for the past 5 years, you could probably do that. And we could separate them out with in-call, in town and out of town. But what is the factor by which we figure out how to appropriately put amount to it?
Yearly ask, so you can back into it.
So you can do a couple of things. You can back into it. You can use the same analysis that we use to get the county formula, which is based on the cost per call through the Medicare services. That's how the call. That's how we get the $250 a call or $225, whatever that number is. We look at this. So there's a couple ways to do it. You can back into it, but really you should do it really from the expense side or from the revenue side. Cost per call is a little high because of the billing revenue, but that formula for the county, and I gave that to you all before, how that came about.
That's what I'm asking, because they already figured that out.
So that's how we go, when we meet with the county every year, we show them what the Medicare base rates are and.
So then what I could do, and I'm not saying that we need to, but what I could do is I could take that you gave us last meeting, I can go back and look at your calendar, your numbers from last year that I emailed you about a while ago.
Which we did.
Yeah.
We gave you those numbers.
But I can sit and use, if I wanted to use the county's number, I can figure out a formula.
Well, we did that for you already. We gave that work session, so you don't have to do any math. We've already done it for you on that last work session. or maybe 2 work sessions ago. So if you pull those minutes out, all that math is at the bottom there.
But the denominator's gonna change because
It's
it's
a
not.
financial obligation.
Right.
Generally, it's pennies on the tax dollar, tough ass.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how to get
I understand.
the X's and the Y's.
And maybe it doesn't match up equal to equal, doesn't match column for column in the county. So in the worksheet that we gave mayor and council, we did not even put the mileage column on there. So, and maybe for the town formula, it's not, you don't have to do the same policy as the county and say that's the new floor. You know, we need to sit down just like we're doing now, and that's why we have to have time in these work sessions, not being rushed, sit here and talk through those things. The rates might match the county because they're proven, and it makes things simple and consistent, so you don't have a taxpayer saying, well, why is the county paying $1 a call and the town's paying $2 a call, or vice versa. But you can have certain things, maybe we don't put the mileage on in there, maybe we don't say there's a floor on it. But we use another terminology, we say as long as it doesn't cause us to lay off personnel or something, so I think we can work through a formula and adjust it. And ultimate goal is we're gonna do kind of what Jay's saying, we're adjusting the formula to work backwards into it. But at least the formula has a basis that you all can look at as the taxpayer, and the corporation, administrative, financial, operational officers, and our auditor, our accountant, can look at and say, oh, this is easy to explain to people. This is how we came up with this number. This is why we came up with this number.
To answer your question though, Steve, the only way we're gonna get out of this at the end of the year, hashing a number out, is gonna be a formula, in my opinion.
So then my next question now is, we're working to this formula that's been in the contract now since we've been hearing before. At what point do we start collecting data? Is it easy to, it's easy to get?
So that was gonna be my suggestion anyway, is we get through June 30th, when we give our report in July, which according to what we just talked about, we'll give you a rough draft of what that formula looks like with 6 months callback. And then when we meet again for the next quarter in September, October-ish, we can, if it's after September 3rd, which it will be in the quarter, we can give you, here's what the formula looks like for 3 quarters of the year. So we just make that part of our quarterly work session, not the presentation, but the work session part. So yeah, we can do that. So give you a progress report. Here's what the formula looked like after June 30th. Here's what the formula looks like after September 30th. And in the meantime, we're massaging it.
I mean, I think that's,
Just throwing
I
ideas
think
out
that's a
there.
good idea.
I think it's helpful.
I mean, we need to start collecting data at some point, so.
That's the data you need, how many, because you see how many calls, but then we equate those calls to $2.
Yeah. So then if we, and then I'm done. And so then if we have this, so that's for 9 months, so then blue sky, mid-spring of 25, we would almost have a full year.
January 15th.
Okay.
So the formula, you have to understand, the formula pays for the calendar year prior.
Right, so it would be paying.
It would be
I mean,
paying for
there's gonna
the
be a little bit of a-
2024 calls.
Yeah.
And then we'll say the end of January, you'll have we ran X number of calls, X number of transports, and that would provide you the numbers on starting to prepare your budget for the next fiscal year.
Not dissimilarly, so you're gonna end up,
Right.
in this, in given fiscal year, paying for some from the prior fiscal year, based on calendar.
The only thing I'll caution you to do, and I will tell you, so I'll take a learn from your mistakes. Don't take the formula in June and multiply it times 2.
Oh, no.
Because our call volume is up and down.
Right.
So I made that mistake one year, several years ago in the budget, projecting something internally for the county, and I had to recount myself and say, oh, I took this and thought we were gonna get this from the county, not thinking, oh, in the winter months, there's call volumes going down.
Well, no, I would, to be honest, for me, I'm just in a data collection phase right now because that's what we have to base everything.
Yep. So as we get quarters along, like the chief said, that 3rd quarter looks pretty good. You know, we could go back and look at the 4th quarter of 2023, give you an estimate. Just don't do the doubling or divide it by 4, 3, and then multiply it back times 4 because you'll flip out at the end of the year, why am I off so much?
But there's enough, I mean, there's enough historical data to show kind of where you guys are going to be. All right.
After COVID. So
Yeah, and we're through the COVID, pretty much through that, yes.
All right. What's next on our list, gentlemen?
Let me take a look here. Oh, so we did send a request for the balance of the funds. So I didn't know if you had any questions on that, 8,000 and some change. You all approved a motion for it to be personnel expenses, and that motion said, but those personnel expenses had to be approved by mayor and council. So I know you can't do that tonight, but it does appear that the EMT expenses based on, I just delivered the invoice to Mary for, just on Friday. Did I see Mary on Friday? On Friday? I was here.
Yeah.
My days run together.
It's been
So I
a
just
week.
brought-
It's been a week today,
Friday,
so-
it was the 31st. As soon as I knew everybody reported to work on Friday, nobody was calling out sick. I sat down and did the May's report. So estimating June, we are going to be about 9,000, not maybe even 10,000 over the 125 for the two EMTs. So you guys have already brought the money forward, you've already made a motion, but there was a caveat in the motion that I read, said, but the, had to be approved.
But what we discussed at a last work session together was to put that off to the side as a way to achieve the vehicle for downtown, for the staffing side of things.
Yeah,
We had discussed that here together.
So I was talking about a work session, but your formal motion was personnel, and that's why I.
But that was for but that predated the last one. The motion for that was for personnel to attend certain town events to achieve our emergency operations plans. And then the subsequent discussions here, which came after that motion, were to keep that money off to the side as a way to achieve the special event vehicle.
The motion at that meeting was amended to read for the vehicle.
I think so.
It was.
No, I went back and listened to the tape, but as a matter of fact, Mr. Burrell, he even said, just give it to personnel and don't tie it up to the funds, because I just went and listened to the tape,
The signed motion was amended. They just said.
So, yeah, so if somebody's, it's something after the public meeting, but that's not what we did.
Do you have the motion number?
I could probably
Mary.
figure it out fairly quickly.
We don't have to research it.
I mean, but the goal is, we
We got
had
it
originally.
downstairs. I can pull it.
But that's our request, so we don't need to belabor it, but that's our request, to use those funds for personnel to help us with this year's budget, if we are something over in that, and last year we were flat funded for EMS, and that would help us with these additional expenses to EMT for this current year.
So now,
Do your research.
Natalie, when you had sent that letter, our finance director had pulled a little bit of information together as well. Let's see, well, I might actually have the motion.
I can't seem to grab my emails, so.
Is this the one that you're talking about? But then,
Yes.
so when Natalie
Of course, pass
sent
it
this
around.
over to Mary and I on the 28th, it said that summary of personnel costs requested by the Berlin Fire Company EMS. Funds budgeted for 2 additional personnel were $125,000, less requested expenses paid by the town as of today, which was $100,000. So you're saying that you've sent in an invoice for over $24,315?
There's an invoice for, I don't know what it's.
Yeah,
So
I
the
can't
balance
recall what the
as of May
invoice
28th that was unspent was $24,315.14.
So the
There has been an
Her-
additional
There has.
invoice.
So I gave her an invoice of about $11,000,
Yeah.
and in June it'll be twice that amount because we have all our matching retirement funds.
Okay.
So it'll be about 9,000 over.
Okay. I mean, I would still like to see us work toward the special event vehicle. I think that's something that we had all talked about. I think it's important that we provide that level of service. And if we need to have a plan for that because we all know, I'll take that back. if you don't mind.
I have some concerns as well with the special event vehicle, not just for special
I have
events.
concerns over the special events too. I mean, like,
The special events, but also the nice weekends that the tracks, bicycles are traveling along the railroad tracks. Somebody has a heart attack or something and they're well off the roadway, how are we gonna access them to get them out? So this is beyond, this vehicle is now a little bit beyond just special events. This is encircling numerous other concerns that are starting to arise as well. The track riding program, and things of that nature. It's becoming a necessity for us.
and I mean, the vehicle we're looking at is probably going to be in the area of $50,000. So $8,000 gets us somewhat close to a 10% match. It could look better on a grant application. I think that the last time we discussed it, we were all going to try and look for some grant options. But we want to help you achieve that as much as I think you all want to achieve that. We hear the overage on personnel costs, but I would really like to protect that funding for that vehicle.
That's your decision. You see our request, you know, the vehicle we kicked the can down the road, the personnel requests are real and today. And you all have to make that decision. That's our request, and you guys can act accordingly.
I'd like to put one other item up, and that's, I mean, Mary and I have talked about this. I think a goal for when we sit down for a contract for next year, what I would like to see the fire company and EMS do is have a conversation with the state park and the federal parks about a contract for service as well. Because Mary's previous experience, they do have those types of contracts in play already with other entities. And I think that it would behoove you all to help kind of come around on the revenue side of stuff in a different angle if possible. So if there's a way we can assist with that, we're happy to do so, but when we sit back down together next year or even throughout our quarterly meetings, I'd like to hear some updates on where those conversations stand. Anything else? All right, well, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good being here, and Steve, I have bled on my pants.
got-
I'm not going to send you the bill.
Now you got-
I'm going to send it.
Now you got strike teams.
Actually, what I'm